one of the big things that people really worry about as they age is they see folks who are older and don't seem like they can move anymore. I actually was just talking to a patient of mine the other day, and they were talking about how their mother is feeling like she won't be able to travel anymore and walk with her grandkid in Europe at the moment. I think that's one of the big things that people really fear. And it does seem like our general relationship with physical therapy is such that we wait till there's a problem until we go to physical therapy. I love that you are really helping folks be proactive with this. What made you realize that I can really help folks get ahead of these problems as a physical therapist and really be proactive?
Yeah, as you suggested, it is mostly post-surgical, post-injury, post-fall. You'd be sent to a physical therapist. But I had a in-clinic presence for about 7 years, and I was doing all of that. And I found my real passion was working with people that wanted to get ahead. We're doing things proactively from a maintenance standpoint, whether that's preparing for loosening a joint for surgery or getting ready for that hiking trip in Europe. Those were the kind of the training clients that I enjoyed working with most, that are older and they still have orthopedic concerns where they don't just want to lift a bunch of heavy weight in a gym with a trainer. They can do a lot of those things, a lot of my exercises at home on their own with what you have around the house. That's really where I got involved. But like the older adult that you mentioned, we all have aging role models, whether they are good role models or bad, they still motivate us. So we either try to move away from being frail and try to suspend frailty for a lifetime, which is kind of one of my mantras, is to try to never even meet frailty, which is, you need an assistive device to get around, you're needing help with everyday tasks. And then some people have really good role models for aging. For me, for instance, my grandmother was playing tennis with me into her 70s and beating me. Well, she was my doubles partner when I was like 10 to 15 years old, and we had a lot of fun. And I always took that for granted because I didn't know. But that's who I named my Heather Lane clinic for. That's the street she lived on. And she was active into her 90s. That's the role model that I have. And I think we should all strive for that stronger role model than just the avoidance. That's my mission, is to have more people be positive aging role models for their younger kids, their grandkids, their nieces, nephews, just to see aging as something that we can be proud of, and it's something that's strong and resilient, opposed to that frailty concept.
That's awesome. We need examples like that, and I hope that we'll increasingly see more. I read a story last year about a gentleman who's 80 years old and ran an ultra marathon, and not just any ultra marathon, but the hardest one. It's called Badwater, 135 miles in Death Valley, and he's 80. I think when we see these TV shows and hear about the blue zones in Okinawa, Japan, and there's one in California and there's another one in Nicaragua, you see these people who are like well into their 90s and they don't move like someone we expect into their 90s. I'm curious, as you started seeing these patients, were you surprised at how good their functionality was as you were working with them? Were they really able to make progress and gains in a way that would be unexpected for someone like me, not having the experience that you do?
I mean, I try to meet people where they're at. If they've never been to a gym and they don't know how to do a hip hinge or they don't lift weights, we don't start with a lot of weights. We just start with body weight movements. And then 4 weeks later or the next appointment, we see where they're at again. And they might say, you know what, I can lift the 2 grocery bags that I have at home, and I don't really want to lift more. Or like, I don't want to go to the gym. So we just keep making the modifications that we need at home. That'd be kind of a lower level adult. I try to keep kind of age agnostic because there's out of shape 60-year-olds and there's ultra running 80-year-olds. So age becomes, yes, it's an important number and people like to know what their physiological age is. The people that are really in shape, master athlete, They go to the senior games every year, and I work with a gentleman who's a world record holder in his age group for swimming. So he's going to need some weights and bands and pretty much testing out as like an orthopedic client. I think he just aged up and he's at like the bottom of his age group. And we're working on rotator cuff strengthening, rotational stability, all the same things I would work on with a 30-year-old. It just depends on where that person's coming in the door. And I try to meet them because there's such a big variability. Most 35-year-olds can climb the stairs and travel to Europe. 65, 85, 95, you do have to make it more custom for that person.
So let's say you have a 65-year-old who walks in who has never been to the gym like you just described. Do they tend to still be able to make progress? Let's say someone out there is listening and they're like, well, I've never been to the gym. It's like too late. You hear a lot in longevity about how you can't reverse things. If you wait too long, it's too hard. But in your experience, do they still benefit from some targeted help with increasing their physical functional capacity?
The internal motivation to want to get better usually stems from some kind of goal that they have. So whether it's to go visit their grandchildren out east, or that they have to take a flight for, or they want to go do a hiking trip in Japan, that 65-year-old that's going to come in is going to be put on some kind of program, whether that's every week they want to come and see me, or I have this capacity compass, a product. It's 30-minute evaluation, and they basically raise the floor on their 3 weakest links of aging, whatever that may be. Those are the most common things that are going to basically take them out of being able to travel in the future, and then giving them an 8-week program to work on those 3 weakest links. When you go to a physical therapist, you kind of know what you're getting. You go into the physical therapy clinic and you're working on your balance or your back endurance or your knee pain. But when I try to be a primary care doctor for physical health needs, which become more and more prevalent and important as you want to go on a trip to Japan, and you know exactly what those demands might be, but you don't know how to get there. It's a little bit more difficult than just showing up at the gym, because you do have chronic conditions, back pain, surgery. There's this whole physical health history that's kind of followed you. I think a physical therapist is perfectly positioned, and the online format works for that kind of digital health coaching.